What's going on, everyone? So, we're all still anxiously waiting around for that first domino in Klay Thompson to drop. Is he going to the Dallas Mavericks? Is he coming to the Los Angeles Lakers? Depending on what happens, likely depends on the direction in which the Lakers go, right? If Klay Thompson, they have to work out a sign and trade, well, then they work out a sign and trade, and then they probably have a plan in place for that. If he can sign for the mid-level exception, then they probably have a plan for that, right? Like various trades to add pieces around Klay, LeBron, Anthony Davis, and Austin Reeves. So hopefully he makes his decision sooner rather than later so the Lakers can start getting the ball rolling here, because you're starting to see all these other teams make these various moves. Not really any moves that, one, the Lakers would likely make, and two, nothing that's been like incredibly impactful, right? Obviously, Paul George ended up going to the Philadelphia 76ers, which is something that we all kind of expected and kind of knew. That wasn't really shocking. That wasn't really surprising. But that makes the Clippers worse, right? Denver got a little worse, right? It's like this feels like a real moment for the Lakers. Oklahoma City got Hartenstein, so that is something that makes them a lot better on top of adding Alex Cruz, so they kind of got the pieces that they need. So the number one seed just got a little better, but I do think if the Lakers hit and they get these moves correct, they could be right there in that conversation and kind of start leapfrogging teams to potentially win an NBA championship again. But Klay Thompson, in my opinion, is the first domino to fall. We got news and reports also that DeMar DeRozan, right? He is a guy that LeBron would take a discount for. DeMar DeRozan is a guy I've talked about heavily, even dating back to last season and the trade deadline. He's somebody I've wanted on the Lakers for a long time. I've talked about and broken down his fit and what I think he could provide to this team. And he's a guy that I think, with his ability to just go get a bucket, right? His ability to be a closer and finisher down the stretch. He's been one of the best fourth quarter players. He's been one of the best clutch players. Been one of the best crunch time players. So having him on top of LeBron James and Anthony Davis and Austin Reeves and these guys, I think would make a real big impact. But I also think it's a very real possibility if Klay falls as that domino, right? They could also bring in DeMar DeRozan, and they could get them in either way, right? So they could go and, let's say you had to work out a sign and trade for Klay, right? Boom. You go work that out, you get him, and then you could maybe sign DeMar for the mid-level exception. Or if Klay does take the mid-level exception, you can go work out a sign and trade for DeMar DeRozan. And boom, now you ended up getting both of these guys that come in and have an impact, right? But if you were to get those two guys, right, let's say best case scenario, let's say Klay takes the mid-level exception, right? Say DeMar DeRozan, you go trade him for $20 million, right? Let's say 2 years, $40 million contract, something like that. That is easy. You could just go D'Lo and Jalen Hood-Schifino and go get DeMar DeRozan, right? Or maybe you're giving up Rui, right? Let's say maybe it's Rui. Maybe they're like, hey, you know what? We really want Rui. Right, he makes sense as a power forward on this roster. Boom, we'll give you him. Maybe even work it out and get Vu in the process, right? But one of the things that I would love to see the Lakers do, because you really got to start rounding out that starting five. So let's go under the assumption that Klay does sign the MLE. I would then try to go get DeMar DeRozan, right? Because now you could slide Klay to the three. I know he's not the guy he used to be, but still, you have him slotted in as that off-ball shooter, run him on pin downs and all that stuff, and then have DeMar DeRozan as just that bucket getter, right? Alongside LeBron James, alongside Anthony Davis, take so much pressure off of each other. But here's the other thing, right? DeMar DeRozan's a guy that can initiate the offense. The Lakers want to run this kind of free-flowing offense, right? It's what JJ wants to do. I think you could slide DeMar to the point, right? Position, name, sake, not really necessarily running the point, but hear me out, right? So got that. Klay Thompson to the 2, right? Now you have that off-ball shooter. You got DeMar DeRozan. And then go trade for a guy in like a Cam Johnson, which, according to reports, the Brooklyn Nets are still interested in D'Angelo Russell. And supposedly, according to Anthony Irwin, that they like and value that he's an expiring contract. Well, Cam Johnson still has 3 years on his deal, counting this season, right? So to me, first step obviously is Klay. What does he do? Let's say he signs for the mid-level exception. You then go trade, say, Rui and Jalen Hood-Schifino to go get a guy in, DeMar DeRozan via sign and trade. And then you could go and trade for Cam Johnson, who's making $23 million, right? Go get him using D'Lo, and you'd have to add some other salary filler. Maybe it's Gabe Vincent, whatever, right? Go and do that, and now you essentially have a starting five of DeMar DeRozan, Klay Thompson, Cam Johnson, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis. To me, that's excellent balance, right? DeMar, serviceable defensively. He's not excellent defensively, but he's serviceable enough. Klay, same thing. Cam Johnson is like a legit 3-and-D, could put the ball on the floor and go get a bucket, do that kind of thing, right? Then you got LeBron, then you got Anthony Davis. And you'd still have guys like Austin Reeves, right? You'd have to go get another backup center, right? There's a couple options out there on the free agency market. I don't think like that is do or die. Obviously, again, you got to get a center. I'm not saying that not having a center isn't do or die. But to me, if you just have that front end talent and then have the capability of having Austin Reeves off the bench as sixth man, you still have Christian Wood, you still have Jared Vanderbilt, right? You still have multiple pieces to where, let's say that starting five is a little awkward, right? Okay, well, you could always like, hey, we need more defense. Well, you could always just slide Cam to the 2 and put Vando in the starting, and then just go like DeMar, Cam, Vando, LeBron, and AD. It'd give you a bunch of versatility, or if you need more playmaking, right? You could throw Austin Reeves. I don't really like him as the point guard, but I think he's a guy that can initiate, especially depending on the type of offense that JJ Redick wants to run. I do think you could get away with DeMar, with Klay, with Cam, with LeBron, and with AD, because again, it would be that free-flowing offense. And if you need that guy that just like, okay, go make plays, you have LeBron. You have the guy on the poster behind me, right? Like, so you can operate him as your main point guard if need be, but you could still run that free-flowing offense where everybody's just kind of, sharing the ball and the ball's just constantly moving and not sticking. Right? At that point, you don't really need that traditional point guard that's, running and getting everybody going and making all the plays. Right? DeMar DeRozan has shown basically everywhere he's been the ability to initiate an offense. I mean, San Antonio used to run him as the point guard all the time, as the main primary initiator all the time. So DeMar DeRozan could easily just step into that role where he's just bringing up the ball, getting us into our sets, getting us into our actions. Right? They want to play LeBron off ball more. Well, you could do that with DeMar and Klay and Cam and Anthony Davis. And now you have, again, two serviceable defensive guys, but you also have Cam Johnson, who can be a good defensive guy, 3-and-D guy. Then on top of that, you got Anthony Davis, who we know what Anthony Davis can do on the defense side. LeBron James kind of coasts in that regard. But you still have the flexibility to kind of tweak the lineups in areas that you need, right? Like, let's say Klay is not quite working. Like, let's say the defense isn't there with Klay, but he's still shooting the 3 ball. Well, you could just move him to the bench, right? And you can insert another piece. Like I said, you could have a Jared Vanderbilt, or, say you want to go with Reeves back in the starting lineup. You could slide Reeves and then just move DeMar to the 2. Right? You'd have that flexibility in order to kind of adjust and tweak your lineup, or certain matchups, right? Let's say you have a certain matchup. To me, you'd have the front end talent to compete with everybody. You'd have basically 3 to 4 bench guys, because you'd still have Austin Reeves, you'd still have Max Christie, you'd still have Jared Vanderbilt, you'd still have Christian Wood, and at that point, you just need to get a backup center. You're 10 deep, right? And you're in good shape at that point, in my opinion, right? Like, you basically flip D'Lo, Rui Hachimura, and Jalen Hood-Schifino, but also Gabe Vincent, right? So you're basically turning D'Lo, Gabe Vincent, and Rui Hachimura into DeMar DeRozan, Klay Thompson, and then Cam Johnson, which would be incredible, first off. But secondly, it's incredibly realistic. Like, it's not one of those things that, like, is so far-fetched. Now, is it something that I would lock it, like, oh, man, it's a lock that it's going to happen? No. But it's not one of those things where it's like, oh, this is just a pipe dream, Lakers pipe. No, this is very real, right? Like, if Klay decides to take the MLE, like the conversations that are being had right now, then that opens the door for so many other things, right? Like, to go get a DeMar DeRozan, to go get a Cam Johnson, right? I mean, you don't even have to get Cam. You could go and do other things. The thing is that you're also hard capped at the first apron, so like you'd have to. That's why I'm saying like Cam Johnson, right? Because you could say like, oh, what about like Jeremy Grant? Like you could do that, but that's another $8 million more than what Cam Johnson's making, or it's like $7 million, whatever. But like that's the difference between you hitting the hard cap or not, and you still got to round out the roster and stuff. But you'd still have like Maxwell Lewis, you'd still have Bronny James, right? You could bring in like Colin Caston, right? Like you'd be fine, and you'd have like basically your main 10 deep. You'd have your development guys. You'd have a roster fully intact, but you'd also have the pieces to contend with basically everybody in the league. You'd have probably one of, if not the best offenses in the league, and you know, people like, oh, well, DeMar doesn't shoot threes. Okay, well, Klay Thompson's 40% for three-point. You know, you got Cam Johnson, who's, 38 to 40% for three-point. LeBron, if he can maintain the 40% from three-point. And DeMar DeRozan takes deep enough twos to where, it's about as close to a three-point as possible. So you spread the floor. There's also more to floor spacing than just shooting threes, right? I really like that lineup. I really like the potential of having that, like, legit 3-and-D. But he's not just, like, Cam Johnson's not just a 3-and-D in the sense of like, oh, he's just going to stand in the corner all game. No, he's a guy that can put the ball on the deck. He's a guy that can, make the occasional play. He's a guy that's very versatile and has good size with 6'8", right? So like you can play him at either forward position, right? You could slide him to the 2 if you needed to, right? Like you have flexibility with that lineup. You have these guys that can play multiple positions. Again, Klay can slide to the 3, right? DeMar could play essentially 1 through 4, right? You could even play Klay 2 through 4 if you wanted to, right? And just kind of have that balance so that way you can run these different lineups, these different units. When LeBron gets some rest, you can always keep guys on the court, right? You can always have a DeMar on the court, and a Klay or a DeMar and AD or whatever, right? And have that nice balance to where you always have that offensive efficiency out there on the court, and then, kind of figure out the rest. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Again, kind of just getting the cogs turning in my mind. And I was like, man, I'd really love to see something like that. And we're all just kind of waiting around for news. It's like, come on. Like, can we get something going? It's like tired, getting no sleep, staying up, waiting because you get news at 1 a.m. It's like, I want that first domino to fall. I want to see that first domino fall. But hopefully it's around the corner. But anyway, again, how you feel, whatever your thoughts are, love to hear it. Let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot, so we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.